Memphis, Tennessee. Beautiful, diverse, southern. It's hard to think of Memphis without thinking about music. While it's home to the birthplace of rock and roll, out of Memphis culture grew a community that loves blues, gospel, jazz, rap, R&B, soul, sports, and delicious barbecue. A bit south of the heart of Memphis and stretching from Midtown and downtown to the Mississippi state line stands one of the oldest communities of this grand city, Riverside, South Memphis. While most focus on the accomplishments of Memphis as a whole, this new podcast, Riverside in Review, sheds light on the incredible names and achievements that have sprung from this significant community in the South. Some you may know and some you may not. From the musical greats like the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin, to impactful politicians like Benjamin Hooks. On this podcast, we will discuss them all and more. So join me, your host, Demetrius Smith, as I, through in-depth conversations, explore the soul and the soulful history of Riverside, South Memphis. You may ask, why a podcast? Or better yet, why a podcast about South Memphis? The answer for me is simple. It's long overdue. If we allow the local and national media to give us a snapshot of who we are, we will only see crime and poverty. But I know that Riverside, South Memphis is much more than that. While I can admit crime in our city is out of control, we should not accept this one-sided view of who we are. I know that despite the problems facing our community, there are several individuals from among our ranks who are doing tremendous work within and outside of the community. These individuals have garnered considerable momentum, contributing to positive societal influence. Unfortunately, their endeavors go largely unnoticed, since, in my opinion, they don't have the benefit of powerful media to highlight their hard work and accomplishments. Why not create a platform where these individuals can be seen and heard, a place where through an in-depth conversation about the community's rich historical significance and the work of these dedicated individuals, the narrative can shift and we can get a closer, more intimate picture of Riverside, South Memphis.
Hey, baby, what you doing tonight? I'm in town for a little while and I bet you're feeling lonely. Yeah, I know they're looking, but that's okay. So now show them you're the one. We just having fun, so let me...
Welcome to Riverside in Review, the podcast that brings you inspiring interviews with remarkable individuals who have made significant progress in the world of social politics, business, entertainment, and beyond. I'm your host, Demetrius Smith. I'm honored to introduce my next guest. Born and bred in Memphis, Tennessee, in the distinguished community of French Fort, Willie Rich was raised by his gospel-loving mother and his father who loved the blues. Like most teenagers in the 90s, he came up on R&B and hip-hop, but his college experience as a Tuskegee University Golden Voice exposed him to African-American choir music and jazz. Now working as a composer, musician, singer, and songwriter, all roads led to Southern Soul for Willie Rich. Willie Rich, welcome and thanks for agreeing to be on the show.
All right, thank you for having me.
I did a little research, and did you know that French Fort's neighborhood has more African ancestry people living in it than nearly any neighborhood in America? Like 8.3% of its neighborhood residents have African ancestry. And I just thought that was something I would share with you since you grew up in the French Fort area.
I think that's interesting too. I never heard that fact, but it's interesting to...
Well, I got it off Google, so, you can... Well, listen, can you tell us about your journey in the entertainment industry and how you got started?
Well, the entertainment industry is... how I got singing is one thing. Is in the church. I used to play for singing little music groups coming up, doo-wop and that kind of thing. In high school. But when I got to college, I really got into music, putting groups together and that kind of thing. But as a professional, I played for a real legendary band called Al Band out of Montgomery, Alabama. And from there, I went into the Southern Soul genre under Steve Perry. The Booty Roll played instruments for him. And now I'm on my own as Willie Rich, singing Southern Soul music in the Southeast.
Okay. I was going to ask you about, why that particular genre of Southern Soul, because I attended an event with you, I think it was a couple of years ago. I think Jeter Jones was headlining.
That's right.
R&B Pooh was also there featured. And I didn't know that Southern Soul had been around so long. I mean, that was brand new to me. So I came home and I did the research and I kind of got into it. I kind of liked it, So what do you think if well, sets you apart from those guys, if anything that sets you apart? What do you think it would be?
Well, being from Memphis, man, like I say, we grew up on the blues, and the real
Right.
transition from blues into Southern Soul, old school artists like Tyrone Davis, Johnny Taylor, Jay Blackfoot, and you got the real godfathers of Southern Soul like TK Soul,
Yeah.
Sir Charles, and that kind of thing. So when I got to Alabama, I used to liken it to blues, and I'd be like, nah, that's not blues. I thought blues was B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, those kind of guys. But it's a certain group of people that I found in Alabama, Southern Soul lovers, that really, rally around artists like Sir Charles and TK Soul and on and on. And so as me playing music, and I got a hold of Steve Perry, which was in that pedigree, in that line, I just fell in love with it once I started going to the shows.
Oh, okay. And so how do you connect with your audience? I've watched you perform on stage. You seem to connect very well. What makes you connect so well with the audience?
Authenticity. I don't mind looking foolish or vulnerable in front of that group. From the heart, reach the heart every time. So I ain't just out there to be seen. I'm out there to have a good time. And anybody that's trying to have one will connect with me too.
Now, this might be a strange question for a performer, but do you experience stage fright? And if you do, how do you cope with it?
At this time, I don't, because it's just like going to a party, having a good time, or telling a story that you know well. But I did it one time. Like I was telling you at one point in time, before my authenticity kicked in, I couldn't sing a whole song in the mirror in the bathroom with the door shut and locked. Like I didn't want to hear me, so don't nobody else want to hear me. So once because of me, I got a greater purpose for Southern Soul. When I say a greater purpose, I mean Southern Soul is not my greatest ambition. So, but I can't get past the authenticity of the people who love Southern Soul. This is where I am with it. So no, at this point in time, I don't experience stage fright because I'm just out there being authentic with the people.
Right. But in the beginning, was it easy in the beginning? In
the beginning, I used to kind of hide behind going out there being vulnerable and authentic. I used to book bands, Southern Soul acts at Southern Star Casino in Lowndes County. And they gave me the gig to sit there and sing every weekend. So what I did was I got other artists to fill those slots. And I would kind of hide behind business, hosting and stuff like that. But as time went on and I realized how serious my purpose was, I just go ahead on and do it, man. So time has, worked with me a little bit more. So it's easier to do it.
Yeah, and you're experienced now. So yeah. Well, can you share like a performance that you are particularly proud of and why?
Okay. As I told you, I was hosting. I used to host and book bands at the Southern Star Casino, and I would host tournaments and things like that. One day, I came in real fast. I've been eating a Lifesaver, some peppermint there on my mouth and smeared all over my face. It was sticky, so I wiped it out, but I didn't see it. So I walked in with all this stuff on my face, hosting the tournament, and people was, trying to tell me what was going on. So I had the microphone in my hand. And so I go in the bathroom and because I finally see it. Right. So I'm like, hey man, why y'all ain't tell me? They said, we tried to tell you. So at that point in time, it seemed like I should have had a great deal of embarrassment, but I just didn't. It was time for me to sing. So I went up there and I sang maybe Some Man's World and sang the best that I'd ever sang. And it let me know how authentic I was in loving those people, like not being embarrassed in front of those people. And some people might have liked to say, oh, well, he made a fool out of himself. Well, yeah, that's okay. It was all right. And that was a very powerful performance because that was an experience that checked me and see why I was really there. And I was there for the people and it showed.
And I guess that kind of leads into the next question is how do you handle criticism or negative feedback and how has it affected your growth?
Like I say, criticism is something that's used to grow if it's coming from a real place. It's somebody that just want to show you that they're better than you, how you could have did this or did that with no answer on how to get better is another thing. But no, you're right. I take those things to heart and I adjust and I notice when I look at myself in the next performance, the next video, I get better. So I handle constructive criticism very well. I actually look for it, but I don't ask for it, because sometimes it seems like when you ask for it, when you did good, like you fishing for a compliment or something, you want. So if somebody cares enough to tell you, like for instance, I used to have a drink in my hand when I'm singing, and a real seasoned artist that I look up to would say, "Hey man, don't hold a drink in your hand. Drink after the fact or drink before the fact. Don't drink while you perform." And every time I see somebody doing that now, I want to tell them if it's not in my place to do so. I'm thankful for the people that told me because I see how it looks, how to use the microphone, how not to cuss on the microphone, and things like that to make you more professional. So criticism, I welcome it, and I handle it well. I welcome it.
Riverside High School, changing of the guard, or something more sinister. When Riverside student Carlos Jones agrees to assist the school's guidance counselor in a plot to derail the stellar career of its beloved principal, a sordid culture of competitive politics, reverse racial discrimination, and inappropriate sexual behavior is revealed. The plan threatens not only to destroy the lives of innocent victims, but could also destroy the reputations of the proud inner-city high school. Pick up all 3 copies of this award-winning tale by author Demetrius Smith from Amazon.com. Scandal at Riverside High, Ruth's Revenge, and The Final Bell.
Well, what are some of the challenges you faced along the way, especially in the beginning? And, how did you overcome them?
A challenge of being vulnerable every time. Like I said, some challenges, I don't like to sing songs that I don't feel and or that I don't believe, because I feel like every moment you being read and people can see what it is. And it's a challenge, like I say, for entertainer that's getting up in front of people. I can identify how difficult it can be. It depends on where you're coming from. If you're just out there to impress people, and some people like that, they want to be impressed. Some people out there, for whatever reason, it's like you can tell. And so the challenge is to keep yourself focused on why, the motivation of why you out there in front of people. So if I'm out there not wanting to make people feel good, I need to sit down. If I'm out there just wanting to be seen, I need to sit down because it's not a good look for me.
Right.
It's not a good look. If people gonna say, something ain't right about that. And that's kind of a challenge, just to stay focused on the why you out there every time.
Right. And, because I know you personally, I know, a personal life and a professional life that you're committed to. And I've kind of watched you, struggle with that. But how do you stay committed to the entertainment industry? Because I know it can be grueling, saying just from, me looking on the outside, a lot of traveling around and, one weekend you're in this place, the next weekend you're in that place. And it's just it seems like it's just, I couldn't balance it personally. So I'm just wondering how does that work for you? How can you make it work?
Yeah, it's my, it's a stepping stone in my calling. So it's easy for me to do what I'm doing going to the next level. To be able to entertain people in an authentic way and to get paid for it is almost like robbery, because I've had some jobs, man, being in FedEx and, trucking and stuff like it's soul crushing. It's a blessing to find what you do, like your calling, and be able to do it to move to the next level. So it's easy to stay focused. When I say focused, it's easy to stay committed because I know that this is the route to my next level.
Okay. And I know you threw out some names, that we all know about, entertainers from the past. But you personally, like, who is somebody that just really makes you, want to stay in the game, that you look up to so that even when in your lowest moment, you think about this person and say, hey, he did it. He went through these trials and tribulations and it keeps you motivated. Is there one person or are there a few people that you can name that would?
That's an interesting question because no, there isn't, but I will elaborate my unanswer or why I'm not answering. You got older people that are your influences, like the Bobby Womack's, the Bobby Blue Blands, the BB Kings, the Johnny, all of those. And then you have, like I said, the bridge in the Godfather of that game, like the TK Souls, the Sir Charleses, and those people. Now I look at them and I see how they spearheaded this genre. I'm not close to these guys. I mean, I may have opened this show for none of those people I named, but people in the pedigree of that. And then I see people that's coming up underneath them, that's in front of me, that I just really admire their artistship, man, the way that they pursue their career. One of them, and you may not have heard of him, but his name is Tonio Armani. And this guy, man, every time I see him sing, every time you see him, look him up. Every time you hear him sing, he don't miss. He can sing any song, and it's him. That's something that I like. When I was starting to sing, I used to have a real imitation type singing. I could sing like another person. But when you connect to yourself and you start sounding like yourself, sometimes that's a vulnerable moment. You think people don't like you if you don't sound like this artist or like that artist. But when you sound like yourself and people accept it, that's something that I admire. And this guy, Tonio Armani, is one of those guys that's in the game that I hope he get everything that's coming to him. And oh yeah, there's plenty more, but that's one of them that stands out to me.
Okay. And the Tuskegee Golden Voice, college years, singing in a choir. You go from that, and you mentioned, starting in the church, and now, you're Southern Soul. Was that a hard transition, or was that something that was just natural?
Yeah.
Because I know church music can really inspire, people. Then you think, well, now I'm in Southern Soul. You know what I'm saying? How were you inspired with the gospel music this way, and then the Southern Soul in that way? Well, was there a difference?
Well, I'll say this. Tuskegee introduced me to African American choral music, which gave me a deeper insight on the arrangement of songs and how those voices can be used to evoke emotion. You see, church when we started off was a raw emotion anyway. When I got to college, it was a more organized form of it. And from there, my writing and skills like those things and my love of jazz kind of seeped off into my music. And Southern Soul was just something that was presented to me that I didn't know much about. Like I say, it kind of fell in my lap.
Have you had the opportunity to
natural?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it was a natural progression just to end that question.
Okay. Like you said, I met Jeter Jones when I was with you in down in Montgomery, or I forgot what road, Tonka, Montgomery. And he seemed like a real nice, genuine guy. Have you been embraced by Southern Soul artists? So, who would they be?
Well, I say one of the bigger artists that I did open up for was Jeter Jones. At the time when you and I met him, I had not opened up for him yet. It's a slow going process. It's a grind because it's so saturated with new artists that come in all the time. So as far as the region that I was in, the little pocket captive market of Southern Soul lovers who played the casino with Southern Star, I had a captive market with those people that didn't really have a choice but to hear me all the time, or the people. But now I have a bigger footprint in between Atlanta and Mobile, and people outside of my Facebook friends, the initial bubble that I was inside, are starting to recognize who Willie Rich is through music that I write, and specifically a promoter that I use called Bridge the Gap Promotions. And shout out to Yolanda Marshall right now for exposing me to the group of network that I need to be inside.
Okay. So what advice would you give aspiring entertainers who are just starting out?
Oh, be yourself, know your motivation of why you're doing what you're doing. Keep going. Sometimes you might get what it seems like no support, but people are watching, they understand what's going on. You need to be able to do it without a pat on your back or your head, and figure out why you're doing it, whether it's inside motivation or outside of. If you're doing it for yourself and reasons that's lifting you up, you can keep going. But if you're doing it for the applause and accolades, people might just not like you and clap, demoralize you, and you don't want to do it. That's a hard road. So I would suggest that you find something on the inside of reasons why you want to do it and keep going.
Okay. So what performances are you, in the future for you that, the audience might want to know, they may want to come see you?
Yeah, I just finished a Western Southern Soul shootout in Marietta, Georgia. Right now, for the end of the year, it's kind of blank right now. But I am working on a Christmas project right now called I Want to Party Tonight, and I need to hurry up because Christmas time is here. Thanksgiving was just here. So I'm motivated to get this song out to the network of people that's listening to Willie Rich.
Cool. Well, look here, I want to kind of end the show on something, that personally you could share. I always like to know, what can you share, a memorable or funny behind the scenes moment from your work, from being out there and dealing with all these different people?
Well, I'm going to try to tell this story. It might not be as funny, but as a style band member, I was, as you heard earlier in the interview, I was a bigger guy. There was a guitar player, and we was at a gig, and there was a very rickety chair, a very unstable chair. I said, hey, don't sit in that chair. They didn't listen to me because I was a rookie. So anyway, we inside of a set, very like dinner piano music, people eating hors d'oeuvres, and all of a sudden you hear blah, 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 a chair breaking into like 8 different parts. And I look down, And the guitar player tried to hold on to something, but nothing around him was stable, like my piano bench, the cymbals on the drum, or anything. So he was making more noise trying to stay still. And he hollered the most sensible thing out as he was trying to keep his balance. He would say, "Help me, Will." And I looked over and I saw him struggling. And what happened was I grabbed his collar. And as I grabbed his collar, he grabbed my knees. You know how it is. Like,
Right.
somebody poke the back of your knees. If you hungry, you supposed to fold. So
Right.
obviously we didn't eat. It was strong enough. And one of the female singers looked over and saw us in this weird awkward position. I grabbed his collar. And he was a heavyset guy. So as I tried to lift him up by his collar, his shirt just came out his pants. And it's all around this. So anyway, that's kind of a funny story that I can remember. We didn't come back to the bandstand until about 30 minutes because we was in the hallway balling.
Yeah, I bet that was funny. Yeah. So tell the audience how they can keep in touch, get in touch with you and keep in touch and follow you on the things that you're doing out here.
Okay, we're about to really launch all of the music that we've been putting out on all streaming platforms. But right now, you can check me out on YouTube. I got a presence on YouTube, Willie Rich 3671. You go and check the songs that I put out so far. Subscribe. Or you can check me out on Facebook, Willie Rich. And those are the two that I pretty much use right now. And like I say, you can check us out on all streaming platforms coming soon.
Well, I want to thank you, Willie Rich. Time has come in
Thank
this
you.
episode, but thank you for joining us. But in closing, I want to invite all former and present Riverside, South Memphis residents who would like to be considered as potential guests on the show to kindly complete the guest intake form on our website. And if the idea of sharing your story with our audience appeals to you, then go to www.riversideinreview.com. That's www.riverside, the letter N, review.com. And this has been another episode of Riverside in Review. I encourage everyone to tune in weekly. We plan to put out a show once a week, just residents of Riverside who are really out in the world making differences and doing their thing. And nobody, some people know about them, but the people who should know don't know, that we have these stars in the making out really doing some real work. So just tune in next week with another guest. Thank you for joining the show. Bye-bye.
All right.